Hi everyone, so in video 2 I'm going to go through some more techniques about playing the organ and how that actually differs to the piano. One of the first things you need to be aware of is, particularly with pipe organs, is there's often a delay between when you play and when the sound actually comes through the pipes, because depending on how it's actually coupled, sometimes if it's an older instrument it can actually be mechanically connected to the actual pipes. This one's an electronic connection, so the connection is actually quite quick. There's not much of a delay, but just keep that in mind. It can be really off-putting for pianists who are used to an instant sound to get used to an organ, which can really play with your mind when it's a second or more delay. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So now some other things that is worth knowing about is if you're called on to play a hymn, and I'm just using an Australian Anglican hymn book here, and that's what I was playing before, a hymn called Abide in Me. One simple thing you'll need to know is you'll need to, if you're asked to play a hymn, you'll need to create an introduction. And that's very easy. It's either the first couple of bars or the last few bars. So if we were playing something like Abide in Me, I would choose a quieter kind of sound. So I'm going to play this on the swell, which is this top keyboard here, and I'm going to use some kind of flute, quiet kind of flute sounding instruments. So I might play something like this for that hymn. And then when it's time for the whole congregation to tune in, then use a bigger sound. So I would move to a different manual, perhaps the great. And that kind of tells everyone, okay, it's time to actually sing along because the organ's got louder suddenly. So that's one little tip. So going quieter to louder and having your manuals programmed with 3 different volume levels, different sound mixes, can be really helpful if you're quite new to playing organ. You could also do the same thing by playing the ending. So this could be an introduction as well for that same piece. Little break. So a little slowdown at the end also tells people that we're coming to the end of a verse or an introduction. A little pause and then back into it. And sometimes, depending on where your console is, you'll have a mirror so that you can see either presider or the cantor or the church worship leader, whatever it is, so that hopefully they can give you some cues as to what you should be doing. But do talk to them about that beforehand too. So that's one thing. Now, you'll also notice one of the most obvious differences between the organ and the piano is that there's no sustain. So when you're playing notes on the organ, if you are used to pushing down the sustain pedal to connect your playing and make it legato, you're going to be out of luck because it just doesn't work here. So what you'll find is that, I'll play a bit more of this hymn and I'll try and show how easy it is if I'm in piano playing mode for it to sound kind of choppy. So, I can hear it's kind of disjointed, and the way to get legato on the organ is to feel like your fingers are really glued into the keys. I'm sure the organ scholars out there won't like me using that terminology, but that's the way I think about it. So really trying to keep everything as connected, like you're kind of stuck in glue in the keys, as possible. So I'm not playing all the notes that are in the hymn, I'm really just watching how I can connect everything together as much as possible. And that really only comes with practice, so don't feel like you're going to get that instantly. There unfortunately is no sustain pedal that you can use on an organ. So another thing that you can do if you have the time and you're feeling confident enough is, rather than change manuals during different verses of a hymn, is to just pull out some more stops to give it a different sound. So, for example, the great at the moment's got quite a warm, lush kind of tone to it. At the end of a verse, I could pull out something like the trumpet and a mixture, and it'll end up sounding like this. Hopefully the microphone is picking that up. So suddenly we've got a much more full-on sound. That would be great for a last verse potentially of a hymn. But that's going to mean that as well as reading the music, working out what you're doing, you're going to have to pull some stops really quickly. And that can be a bit of a challenge. So that's why I like to just have a balance of different sounds preset on the 3 different manuals. I think it's a great way to go. Okay, now we've got to talk about improvising and filling time, because what you'll find is oftentimes you're being guided by what's going on in the service as to what you're playing. So you might happily come to the end. Let's say we're on the last verse of this hymn. And they're only halfway through whatever it is, the collection or whatever they were doing. So don't just stop, because everyone's going to kind of look around and go, okay, what happened to the music? You've got to keep going, and it's really important that you're prepared for that. So I think the easiest thing to do there is explore around with the chords in that particular key. So I'm working in E flat here. I can pretty easily go to some other chords and just kind of hold them and prolong them and fill in some time pretty easily. Do you get the idea? I mean, I ended up in C major then, but I'm just kind of holding chords, and this is why I'm so very passionate about students and teachers knowing their chords and being able to just play along in a key. If you're absolutely stuck for material and you need to continue and do a bit of filling, then just keep playing the hymn slowly. So finish the verse. Keep the music going, don't let anything stop, and then you can kind of make stuff up, hold notes in your left hand, kind of play the right hand. It's an easy way to get through that. One of the other things you're going to notice is that organs are really unforgiving. When you have got a big sound coming out of, let's say, the grate, and you're trying to play a hymn and you make mistakes, let's go to a hymn that I'm likely to make some mistakes on. It's one of my favourite hymns, so I hate saying I'm going to make a mistake, but I probably will. And I'll play it on the grate. Let's add some sound to this. There we go, beautiful. So I'm not a bad sight reader. I've played this hymn a few times, but I guarantee that there's going to be some little things that slip through, and this is one of the skills of a good organ player, can somehow avoid these kinds of mistakes. But let's see what happens anyway. So the hymn is Praise My Soul, the King of Heaven. Now, I don't know how many little slips you heard there, but I could hear quite a few of them. Again, I'm not sure how well the microphone is picking up this incredible sound that's in this auditorium. And unfortunately, when it comes to mistakes and slips of the fingers and things like that, those kind of things, there's absolutely nothing you can do about them except keep on playing and try to avoid, unless you had lots of practice, try to avoid playing too loudly, because there is no hiding at all. Now, I did want to let you know, in the last video I mentioned some tricks for us pianists who don't know what to do with our feet. Yes, I understand what the pedal board does. I mean, it sounds great if I'm playing a chord here, add some pedal on C. It's one of the reasons I love playing organ so much. You can make a really big sound with the pedals. But what if you're not familiar with how to use them? Well, I'm going to give you 2 tricks, and I think it's really important that all pianists know these so that you are familiar with them and can use them if you need to. Organs all have things called couplers, and couplers just connect things like the sounds of one rank or one manual to another sound bank. So you can play a pedal sound on a manual or a swell sound on the pedal and things like that. They're called couplers, and you can actually see them there here. It says SW to ped or GT to ped, so swell to pedal, great to pedal, so it's moving the sounds around the instrument. One way you can do this is to choose, let's say on the swell in particular, if there's a 16-foot pipe of some sort, and I know I haven't got into a lot of detail about the pipes, but it's another whole kind of topic, I guess. 16 it just means that the pipe is longer, so you'll get 16, 32, you could even have 64. That's the biggest, loudest sounding instrument. So 16 is quite deep. If we then couple the swell to the pedal using that, we can play up here on the swell, and it's going to sound like you're using the pedals down below. It's a really neat trick. So I'll choose something a little bit different to play for this one. I'm going to use up here the swell to play the pedal sound, and I'm going to just add some sound in the grate here for the right hand. Now, this one is a double trumpet. It's probably not the best sound. More of a flute, a more warm kind of sound would probably be better for that purpose. But that's one way that you can kind of cheat the system as a pianist and play the left hand in a pedal range while you're doing the right hand on a different manual. So that's one way to do it. The other way is just to do lots of coupling. So if I add the grate to the pedal, the swell to the pedal, let's turn on and get some stops out for all of these. We will have, you'll have a sound in your left hand that's way easy big enough to convince people that you are playing the whole instrument. And I think that's probably not a very good mix. I don't really like that. So I might choose, just sound a little bit, and this is where you've just got to get used to exploring and having that time to hopefully explore some of the different stops. Again, I think it's a little bit too gravelly and rough at the moment. I need to explore it a bit more, but you get the idea. Look for these coupler buttons. They're here, and in the case of this instrument, that's not always the case. They are also listed as stops on both sides to couple different parts of the organ together. All right, so I hope that was a helpful look in video number 2 at some of the techniques about playing the organ that are a little bit different to playing the piano. If you've got any questions or comments, leave them below. Hey, just before you go, make sure you click here to subscribe, and we've got thousands of other videos all on the topic of music education and teaching, so make sure you check out some of those other ones here, and I'll see you in the next video.